My fiancé fell in love with the poor student I sponsored. To show his determination, regardless of his family's opposition, he even ran to my house and bluntly proposed to call off the engagement. My father was furious, and my mother almost fainted. For a while, I became the laughingstock within the circle. No one knew that we held a family meeting that night. Everyone analyzed everything calmly and systematically. My father took a sip of tea and said, "Familiarity breeds contempt. Go abroad for a few years first and use retreat as a means of advance." My mother had a calm expression and said, "Change your persona. She plays the innocent little flower, and you become the unattainable white moonlight." I smiled and said, "Then I should probably get depression first." On the day I returned to the country, my friends in the circle held a welcome banquet for me. After several rounds of drinks, there was a lot of laughter in the private room. Someone pushed the door open, and the next moment, the harmonious atmosphere suddenly froze. The people who came were exactly my former fiancé and his girlfriend. I turned my head to look and met a pair of familiar, cold, and stern eyes. Jack's gaze lingered on me for a rather long time. As a result, Wendy, behind him, gradually looked unhappy. Everyone looked at each other in surprise, and some people carefully observed my expression. After a brief moment of stunned silence, I naturally raised my hand to invite them to take a seat. "You're here. Have a seat." It was as if the conflict that happened 3 years ago had never occurred. Jack's expression was complicated for a moment, as if he wanted to say something but held back. But in the end, he just responded indifferently. Wendy sat beside him, trying her best to maintain a decent smile, but her stiffness was hard to hide. Everyone understood tacitly, and the looks they cast at her were tinged with ridicule. I pulled her out of poverty and sponsored her education, yet she stole my fiancé. Who would think highly of such an ungrateful person? Over the past few years, my family's business has developed rapidly, and it shows a tendency to surpass the James family. The people present with shrewd minds, whether out of a desire to avenge me or for considerations of profit, while clinking glasses, they all, without prior agreement, isolated Wendy, making her feel like an invisible person. She looked at Jack for help, but he was uncharacteristically silent. A gaze filled with scrutiny landed on me. Faintly, even in the dim light, it couldn't hide Wendy's pale and tense face. After I had enjoyed the sight enough, I slowly raised my glass to save her from the awkward situation. "You two are late. You should punish yourselves by drinking 3 cups. No objections. Right? Don't try to get away with it. This is the rule." As soon as I finished speaking, everyone's expressions varied for a moment, but they quickly chimed in. "Yes, Nancy is back in the country today. Don't spoil the fun." Jack didn't say anything and drank 3 cups neatly. With a flick of his wrist, the wine glass hung upside down, with not a single drop left. Our eyes met, and it seemed that he was also apologizing to me for what happened 3 years ago. I smiled slightly and looked at Wendy. She picked up the wine glass, twitched the corner of her mouth, but didn't dare to meet my gaze. I wanted to clink glasses with her, but she jerked away as if avoiding a fierce beast. The wine glass fell to the ground. The others couldn't stand it anymore. "Hey, Jack, what's wrong with your girlfriend?" "Nancy is willing to let bygones be bygones, but she's still showing an attitude and trying to make us unhappy." Jack glanced at her, pursed his lips unhappily, but still spoke up to defend her. "Wendy didn't do it on purpose. That's enough." Wendy hung her head and apologized softly, with red eyes, as if she had suffered some grievance. Among my friends, those who had no business cooperation with the James family were about to lose their temper on the spot. "Hey, I can't stand this." I stopped him and smiled amiably. "We're all friends. Such a small matter isn't worth getting worked up over. The things in the past are already over. Let's not mention them anymore." I looked at Jack and Wendy, tilted my head back and drank a glass of wine, my eyes showing comfort. Jack's expression softened, and there was a hint of a smile in his eyes. Everyone understood that this was a gesture of letting go of past grudges with a smile, so the atmosphere became lively again. During the banquet, I went to the terrace to get some fresh air and sober up. Jack's slightly hoarse voice came from behind me. "How have you been these 3 years?" The wind blew through my hair, creating a sense of reunion that seemed to span a lifetime. I turned around and didn't miss the flash of surprise and complexity in Jack's eyes. "After drinking so much wine, can your stomach still take it?" Instead of answering his question, I first showed concern for his health. Jack instinctively covered his stomach, and his expression was actually dazed for a moment. He had always had a stomach problem and was very picky about food. Back then, It took me a year to figure out his taste. I created a personalized nutrition recipe just for him. I watched him eat carefully every day and always had his commonly used stomach medicine and healthy snacks ready in my bag, but I was still defeated by that girl who would take him to eat at roadside stalls. Jack composed himself and looked at me with a complicated expression. "Don't you hate me?" I shook my head and said, "It's all in the past, actually." There was no insurmountable conflict between us. Moreover, as the saying goes, even if the business fails, the friendship remains. Jack couldn't help but laugh, and the atmosphere became much more natural without being noticed. He teased, "You've become much more magnanimous." I also smiled and said, "We're just not suitable to be lovers, not that we're not suitable to be friends, right?" In fact, after Jack and I called off the engagement 3 years ago, the relationship between our two families became precarious, and in these 3 years, we have been at loggerheads. We directly changed from prospective in-laws to business rivals, engaging in open and covert struggles. Now, people in the circle know that my parents dote on me like their lives, and they are also amazed at the development momentum of my family. Many people in power have repeatedly admonished the younger generation that it's best to have a good relationship with me, and if they can't manage that, they must never provoke me. As soon as I returned to the country, many unfamiliar friends emerged from all corners, and there were continuous invitations. One more Jack doesn't make a difference. What's more, there's really no need for the two families to be at such odds. I believe that Jack's presence at my welcome banquet today may have been influenced by his family, who wanted him to ease the relationship. After all, the James family is a big target and is showing signs of fatigue. There's no need to have one more powerful opponent. Hearing the meaning in my words, Jack's brows relaxed. He walked beside me, and we leaned against the railing, facing opposite directions. We chatted casually about the changes and experiences of the past 3 years. Our evenly matched auras made the atmosphere particularly harmonious and relaxed. Out of the corner of my eye, a white skirt flashed past the corner. I curled my lips. I think the coming period of time will be very interesting. After that conversation that day, the relationship between Jack and me, which had been getting closer, seemed to return to its original state in an instant. I rarely replied to his messages and phone calls. I also deliberately avoided the gatherings he organized. This drop made Jack feel flustered all of a sudden. He found Linda and tried to meet me. Linda sighed and said, "You don't know yet, do you? Someone on the internet is smearing our boss, and all kinds of ugly rumors are spreading everywhere. Our boss's depression has flared up again, and our madam forced her to go to a sanatorium." Jack was stunned, and his dry voice seemed to squeeze out from his throat. "What depression?" Linda realized she had said the wrong thing, and a look of embarrassment flashed across her face. "Sorry, I can't say." Jack could only ask Linda to take him to the Smith family. Since the engagement was called off 3 years ago, he had never been here again, and my parents would never let him in. On the way Linda drove him home, she saw through the rearview mirror that he was searching for online news. His brows furrowed deeper and deeper, and his face became more and more tense. A private account on a certain platform exposed my information. It accused me of being the mistress who intervened between Jack and Wendy after returning to the country. I'd been pestering Jack without a sense of boundaries in the name of being friends. They also took photos of Jack and me talking on the terrace at the welcome banquet that day. The angle made us look very intimate. For a while, there were a lot of curses on the internet, and coarse remarks such as "slutty woman" and "desperate socialite" kept emerging. Many friends stood up for me, and everyone knew perfectly well whose doing this was. They asked me if I wanted to clarify and fight back. I just smiled bitterly and said, "Forget it, justice will prevail in people's hearts. I don't want to pursue it anymore." In this comparison, I not only had my fiancé stolen from me but was also wrongly accused and smeared, and I still don't plan to take revenge. Even the Virgin Mary would feel ashamed in comparison. Everyone made jokes, but I firmly occupied the moral high ground. The higher the flames of public opinion burned, the better it was for me and the Smith family. I was so afraid that the fire wouldn't burn fiercely enough that I even secretly added fuel to it. Now it's time to take the next step. After Jack arrived at my house, my mother looked at him with a dark expression and chased him away. "My daughter has been unlucky ever since she met you. Get out of here right now." He kept apologizing and even his eyes turned red. "He just wanted to see me, Auntie. Did Nancy get depression because of me? Please let me see her, otherwise I won't be able to rest assured." A hint of coldness flashed through my mother's eyes, but she sighed helplessly on the surface. Forget it, children are like debts. You can go and see her. After she told him the address of the sanatorium, Jack couldn't wait to walk outside. My mother exchanged a look with Linda, and the latter nodded almost imperceptibly and followed him out. On the way, Linda vividly told him how serious my depression was when I was abroad. I was like a puppet without a soul. I tried to commit suicide several times, and fortunately, I was discovered in time. Jack turned his head and looked out of the window. The car window reflected his slightly red eyes. When he found me, I was sitting on the bed in a daze, wearing a blue and white striped hospital gown. My gaze was fixed on the birds flying outside the window. The sunlight spread on my face, giving me a broken and beautiful look. Jack's hand by his side tightened slightly, almost imperceptibly. He said carefully, "Nancy." I stiffened instantly, surprised and flustered. "Why are you here?" Jack had a helpless expression. "Why didn't you tell me you were sick?" I smiled indifferently. "It's not a big deal. My mother is just making a mountain out of a molehill." Jack's gaze dropped slightly, as if he didn't dare to look at me. "Did you get depression because of me?" I interrupted him. "I'm so bored. My phone was taken away, and my mother even sent Linda to keep an eye on me. Would you like to take me out to play?" It was rare for me to show such a pleading and coquettish gesture. For a moment, Jack almost stood there in a daze, and his throat moved slightly. I waved my hand in front of his eyes and frowned unhappily. "Is it okay or not?" He coughed lightly, and a blush spread across his handsome face. It softened the mature and cold look between his eyebrows and eyes, as if he had turned back into the young lad in his adolescence. "Nancy, you need to rest and recuperate your body." I turned my head to the side and didn't say anything. Jack couldn't help but laugh. He found an excuse to distract Linda, and I took the opportunity to run out. To prevent Linda from following, Jack drove me to a snack street in a deep alley. My eyes lit up. "Jack, you're amazing. How did you find this place?" His eyes flashed slightly, and he avoided my gaze. "I passed by here accidentally. I didn't ask further." It was obvious with just a little thought that this was the place where he and Wendy had fallen in love. Basically, it was a sweet memory unique to the two of them. Now it seems that their relationship is not indestructible. I rarely came to these places, and I found everything very novel. I wanted to eat the golden and crispy wolf's tooth potatoes for a while, and then I was craving the stinky tofu across the street. Before long, Jack was holding several bags of snacks in his hand, and I was holding a skewer of candied haws and putting it into my mouth with great relish. As a result, I grimaced from the sour taste. Jack laughed, and a long-lost sense of relaxation and freshness flashed between his eyebrows and eyes. "Didn't you say you didn't like these? Be careful of getting diarrhea." I rolled my eyes. Who said I didn't like them? Then, thinking of something, I blushed shyly and my voice dropped. "I used to pretend like that in front of you." Jack was taken aback. "What?" I sat down on a bench by the river as if giving up on everything. "Actually, every vacation before, I lied to you that I went to summer and winter camps abroad. In fact, I went to various mountainous areas to do charity work with my parents. My parents also came out of the mountains, after making a career. They wanted to give back to society. They were afraid that I would develop a princess-like attitude, so they took me with them every day to remember the hard times and cherish the good life. I really got along well with the children in the countryside. I was like a naughty monkey, climbing trees and catching fish. Don't even mention it. I also like to eat the spicy strips and chewing gum in the small grocery store, the kind that comes with stickers." When talking about the past, my eyes sparkled. Jack looked at me deeply, his expression gentle. "There's no need to lie to me about these things." A hint of uneasiness flashed across my face. "You're a young master. I was afraid that you would think I was narrow-minded and a country bumpkin. I also care about my face. Moreover, you have a bad stomach. When I supervised you to eat, I definitely had to set an example." Jack's soft laughter stopped abruptly. He looked at me deeply, his expression complicated, and a strange emotion flashed through his dark eyes. Before he could speak, I let out a sigh of relief and smiled brightly. "But now we're friends, and I can say the things that I couldn't say before." The setting sun turned into broken gold and sprinkled on the river, which was extremely magnificent and beautiful. I stood up and smiled slightly. "It's time to go back." Jack was driving the car, and I was sitting in the passenger seat. We didn't say a word all the way. The quiet and dim environment can make people relax, but for those with something on their minds, it's the opposite. I turned my head towards the car window and could just observe Jack's expression through the glass. His brows were furrowed, and he was fidgeting. I patiently waited for him to speak. Sure enough, in less than a moment, he said hesitantly, "Back then, you saved me." His voice gradually weakened, as if he didn't know how to ask. I knew what he was going to ask. Probably in junior high school, Jack was sent back to his hometown during the summer vacation because he had beaten someone. The James family seemed to have very strict rules. The younger generation who made mistakes had to kneel in the ancestral temple to reflect on their mistakes. I happened to go to the local area to do charity work with my parents. It rained heavily for 3 consecutive days that time, and the landslide caused the ancestral temple of the James family to be flooded. I would occasionally wander around that area, trying to run into Jack by chance, and I actually witnessed this natural disaster. I made a quick decision and called the rescue service. I joined the people from the James family who came to the scene and dug the soil with our bare hands in the rain to find Jack, who was buried underneath. When we rescued him, he opened his eyes weakly and met my equally disheveled face. "Great, classmate Jack. You're okay." He officially accepted me from this moment on. After that, the James family stopped suppressing my father and arranged a marriage between me and Jack. The Smith family was able to develop rapidly to the point where it was almost on par with the James family. Everyone thought that the strong alliance between our two families was a sure thing, but no one expected the sudden appearance of Wendy to change everything. At that time, when I caught them in an ambiguous and intimate moment, I was extremely angry and spoke without thinking. "Wendy approached you on purpose." Jack stared at me with a cold expression, implying something. "Didn't you have ulterior motives when you saved me?" I looked at Wendy. She shrank back and lowered her eyes. Jack protected her in his arms and left. Some words can only be believed when they are said by someone close to me. Before long, he proposed to call off the engagement and was determined to be with Wendy. Sure enough, this matter has always been a thorn in Jack's heart. Now it's time to pull it out. I turned my head and looked at Jack, my eyes filled with hidden sadness. "Of course I deliberately approached you." He gripped the steering wheel tightly, so hard that his knuckles turned slightly white. "Because I like you." With a sudden break, the car stopped by the side of the road. When Jack suddenly turned his head to look at me, a clear tear slid down from the corner of my eye. "I know that the person you beat up that time was a bully. You've always been a person full of justice, and that's the kind of you that I like. I happened to meet you when I went to the mountainous area to do charity work with my parents. I was very happy and thought that even God was helping me." I suppressed the choking sobs and forced a smile at him. Jack's eyes turned red. He carefully held my hand and bent over to press his forehead against it. "I'm sorry, Nancy, I didn't know." The warm liquid slid onto my palm, causing a tingling sensation. I slowly but firmly pulled my hand back and met his confused and helpless gaze gently. "It's not easy to meet someone you truly love. You should cherish it. Wendy is the person you care about. Don't worry, I won't hold her accountable, and you shouldn't blame her either. She just loves you too much." Touched and guilty expressions flashed through Jack's eyes. "I'm not here to plead for her. You don't have to suffer such grievances." I chuckled. "Anyway, I had a great time today. Consider it as you compensating me on her behalf." Jack looked at me with an unprecedented tenderness in his eyes. Everything was left unsaid. I looked at the car that had been following us for a whole day in the rearview mirror, and the curve of my lips became deeper and deeper. When the memories are no longer unique, when the once proud sincerity has stains, and when the unattainable white moonlight becomes bright and flawless again. How will she deal with herself? After coming out of the sanatorium, I officially started working in the group as the vice president. During the 3 years I was abroad, I actually went to the overseas branch for training. I not only revitalized the industries under the group that were on the verge of bankruptcy, the profits of the projects I took over were very substantial, and the financial statements were getting prettier year by year. The senior members of the Smith family unanimously recognized my ability and means. My father modestly said that I still need a few more years of training. In fact, he has already bought the fishing equipment for his retirement. While I was busy taking over the work, I asked Linda to report on the situation of Jack and Wendy. The seemingly unbreakable relationship between the two of them seemed to have cracks. They parted on bad terms several times, and Wendy no longer appeared at the gatherings of our mutual friends. Jack didn't even go back to the apartment they shared and directly moved back to the James family villa. Jack's mother has also been having a headache recently because of Wendy's parents who came to the door. After I didn't interfere, Wendy's parents quickly came to the door, after learning that their daughter had caught a rich boyfriend. They clung to the door of the James family like a stubborn adhesive and refused to leave. They demanded an exorbitant amount of betrothal gifts and also asked for a house and a car for Wendy's younger brother. My mother said that Jack's mother didn't even have the face to attend the afternoon tea parties for wealthy ladies. She was so angry that she had nowhere to vent her anger. She was annoyed just by looking at Wendy's crying face. Jack's father had been decent all his life and was so angry that he almost severed the father-son relationship with Jack. He pointed at Wendy's nose and scolded her, belittling her as worthless. Wendy was extremely embarrassed. Her face turned pale, and she longed for Jack to speak up for her as he used to her shock and collapse. This time Jack remained silent, his face as cold as ice. My father twirled the Buddhist beads in his hand and said in a flat tone, "The James family is in a complete mess now. It's really a sin." My mother blew on the hot tea. "It seems that Wendy will never be able to get rid of the hurt from her original family. How pitiful." I was a bit speechless. "Put away the schadenfreude on your faces." The three of us looked at each other and all showed meaningful smiles. I remembered the day I returned to the country when we gathered in the study for a meeting. My father twirled the teacup and said leisurely, "The first step is to use retreat as a means of advance. Familiarity breeds contempt. 3 years is enough to dilute all the unpleasantness. Subconsciously, it will make him miss your goodness. Habit becoming second nature is not a joke. The experiences and between you two over the years cannot be replaced by just anyone. Even a random song or a scene can make him think of your face, even if they love each other deeply. There must be a corner in his heart that belongs to you." My mother stroked her jadeite earrings and elongated her tone. "The second step is to have what others don't have and be extraordinary when others have it. Visiting roadside stalls is not the exclusive privilege of the innocent little flower and the young master. What's that saying? After eating too much delicacies from the mountains and seas, one day when you eat pig food, you might think it's a peerless delicacy. People are the same as food." When Jack finds out that you can not only accompany him to eat delicacies but also have simple porridge and side dishes with him, will he still think of that bowl of pig food? The third step is the most cliched but also the most useful technique of playing hard to get. I have to make him feel a sense of crisis and make the final choice. When Jack finally found an opportunity to ask me out, I had just finished a blind date. As soon as I arrived at the cafe, I leaned backward with a look of despair and no regard for my appearance. "My parents are crazy. They insist on forcing me to get married within this year." The curve at the corner of Jack's lips was a bit stiff. "Why are they in such a hurry? They're about to retire and want to enjoy the pleasure of having grandchildren." Suddenly thinking of something, I abruptly pulled closer to Jack. Otherwise, his Adam's apple bobbed, and his hands resting on his legs clenched quietly. "Do you have any handsome and decent brothers around you? Can you introduce one to me?" Jack's tense expression blanked for a moment, and then his face darkened. "Is that what you wanted to say?" There was a hint of gnashing of teeth in his tone. I spread my hands and said helplessly, "There's no other way. Blind dates are such a waste of time, and I didn't get along well with any of them." Jack let out an inexplicable sigh of relief. When he raised his eyes, he found that I was looking at him. I drawled casually, "What did you think I was going to say just now?" Jack gave in. He coughed lightly, averted his gaze, and revealed the tips of his red ears. "Nothing," I reminded him amusedly. "The screen of the phone in your coat pocket has been on since just now. Is it Wendy calling you? Maybe you should go back first." At the mention of Wendy, the smile on Jack's face visibly faded. He picked up the phone and hung up. With an indifferent expression, "It's just a harassing call." I smiled faintly and said in a softer voice, "Do harassing calls keep coming? I also know more or less that you two have had a conflict recently. Such a family is not something Wendy can choose. Don't be angry with her. Why can't you talk things out properly? Wendy is naturally sensitive and inferior. Without good communication, misunderstandings will arise." Saying this, my expression became a bit downcast. There was a set of extremely difficult math papers in high school. It took me a long time to finish them. I wanted to see if there was anything I could do to help Wendy and Linda. Maybe my attitude was a bit condescending. Wendy suddenly ran out in tears. I'd been reflecting on whether I said something wrong that made her hate me so much. Jack listened with a frown and fell into memories, his expression getting uglier and uglier. He said in a cold and stern tone, "What's your fault? You provided her with food and clothing and let her go to the same school as us. You even spent time teaching her. She's too sensitive and thinks too highly of herself, feeling that everyone looks down on her. If she has the ability, she should stop accepting sponsorship and support herself. Who is she showing this attitude to?" I slightly raised my eyebrows. This sentence contained a lot of information, apparently. He remembered this memory, at that time. Wendy saw Jack appear at the door and thought I was deliberately mocking her for being stupid in front of him. Her self-esteem was hurt in front of her crush, so she ran to the garden to cry secretly. Under the bright sunlight, butterflies fluttered, and the young boy and girl looked at each other from a distance. I stood on the second floor and quietly admired this beautiful picture. This was also the starting point of their entangled fates. Linda sent me a message in a timely manner. Wendy has left. I gently curved the corners of my lips. To make someone perish, first make them go crazy, hearing with her own ears that the lover she had chosen to give up her future and self-esteem for actually evaluated her like this. Would she resolutely cut off ties and leave? Or, besides being heartbroken, would she hold on to this last straw and driftwood even more tightly? I'm really looking forward to it. A few days later. The good news came that Wendy was pregnant and the James family was about to arrange an engagement for the two of them. This went so smoothly because Wendy's parents had settled down. They said nice things and apologized. The people of the James family had no choice but to let this matter go. I don't know if they were guided by an expert or if they became smarter. After making a fuss, they realized they couldn't get anything. So they turned to Wendy and played the emotional card, saying things like it was better to have her family from her hometown to support her. This made Wendy, who was isolated and full of grievances, feel the warmth of home after a long time. My father was feeding the koi in the pond. When he heard this, he didn't even look up. Did she just forgive her family who once wanted to sell her to an old bachelor like this? Not only did they make up, but she also settled them down in J City and staged a scene of a loving family. My mother sneered, and a hint of mockery flashed through her eyes. The principle that familiarity breeds contempt is universal. After all, blood is thicker than water. After not seeing each other for more than 10 years, no matter how much hatred or resentment there was, it was diluted by time, especially when one is wronged in front of outsiders. Subconsciously, the goodness of family members will come to mind, under our protection. She even forgot how low her family could go for the sake of profit. I pressed the reject button on Jack's incoming call again. My eyebrows and eyes relaxed. Soon, it was my birthday party. This was my first appearance since I officially joined the group. In order to expand my network of contacts for handover and take the lead in cooperation, of course, it was held on a grand scale. On this day, Jack and Wendy also came. They stood side by side, arm in arm, and they really made a handsome couple. I raised my glass to them from a distance and then went to entertain other guests. The air was filled with the fragrance of clothes and the shadows of hairpins. Glasses clinked together. I was wearing a simple and elegant white evening dress, and I talked and laughed with various CEOs in a poised manner. No matter where I went, there was always a gaze with a strong sense of presence fixed on me. I looked back and smiled faintly. Jack's eyes instantly sparkled, and he unconsciously walked towards me. Wendy had a stiff smile on her face. Before she could react, she was pulled forward abruptly. She collided head-on with a waiter holding a tray. A scream attracted the attention of all the guests. The wine glasses on the tray shattered all over the floor, and Wendy's pink mermaid dress was stained with wine. For a moment, Wendy stood there awkwardly and uneasily, looking disheveled. Naturally, everyone recognized Jack. Seeing Wendy's appearance at the moment, they all curled their lips. They whispered to each other softly, words like, "can't stand on the stage," "narrow-minded," and "what a blind choice," reached my ears. Wendy's face turned red and white. She bit her lip and trembled all over. Jack also had an ugly expression and didn't even look at her. After I had heard enough, I stepped forward to smooth things over. I decently and gently offered to take Wendy upstairs to change into another dress. Suddenly, everyone looked at me with even more admiration. Jack's tense expression relaxed. There was a mix of guilt and helplessness between his eyebrows. But his eyes looking at me were filled with a burning gaze. "Nancy, I'm sorry for ruining the atmosphere of your birthday party." He didn't notice that Wendy beside him was biting her lip tightly. With red eyes, I shook my head and said, "It's just a small matter." He was about to say something more, but I turned around and led Wendy away. When we reached the dressing room, Wendy suddenly looked up at me. "You must be very proud to see me like this, right?" I looked at her amusedly. "What are you talking about?" Wendy sneered. "You look so superior and disgusting. Don't think I don't know you did it on purpose. Just because you were born into a wealthy family, besides bullying others with your power, what else can you do? Don't you feel ashamed?" I sighed. "It's not that you're right just because you're weak, My parents started from nothing and achieved today's success through their own efforts step by step, as their child. I inherit and strive to expand the foundation they laid. Why should I feel ashamed? As for you, you could have become a winner in life through your own efforts. Why did you have to ruin your future for a man? This was also what puzzled me the most. We met Wendy when we were doing charity work in a certain mountain village. She was only 13 years old at that time and was being dragged on the ground by her father and an old bachelor. The despair and unwillingness in her eyes were so intense. We called the police, and she knelt on the ground crying, desperately begging us to take her away. She didn't want to waste her life in this small mountain village where the future was clearly visible. Linda had a similar situation to hers, but she had a clear goal, and the determination on her face was even more astonishing. She said, "Knowledge changes destiny. I want to study and create a future for myself." I sponsored both of them at the same time. I felt sympathy for Wendy and was touched by Linda, but I never interfered with any of their decisions or thoughts. After several years, they made completely different choices about their futures. Wendy clenched her hands tightly, her expression extremely angry, and tears welled up in her eyes. "I hate your self-righteous tone the most, as if choosing love is some huge mistake. Jack is the only one who has been good to me. He is my savior. Is there anything wrong with me liking him? Just because you sponsored me, do I have to be at your mercy? Yes, I did steal your fiancé. You don't know, do you? Jack hates your confident and superior attitude just like me. Your so-called sponsorship is nothing but a form of charity and hypocrisy. It's disgusting." I laughed out loud. "Spending money to support your education, providing you with the best resources and conditions, and taking the time to teach you. Is this what you call being at my mercy? You never asked me if I wanted it. Then why didn't you refuse the sponsorship?" After a moment, the anger on her face grew deeper, and even resentment seeped out of her eyes. "Yes, you took advantage of the fact that I could only rely on you, so you deliberately prevented me from getting along with Jack and didn't allow me to get close to him. Isn't this being at your mercy?" "Of course not. In fact, I secretly played the role of the matchmaker for you too." I just smiled and didn't say anything. "I don't understand. Why do you think Jack's kindness to you is a form of salvation, while my kindness to you is a condescending charity? Is it because he has something more than me?" Wendy was stunned for a moment, and then a hint of embarrassment flashed across her face. She gritted her teeth and said, "He treats me sincerely, while you're just using me to show off your kindness and set off your brilliance." I interrupted her, and my expression became extremely sad. I murmured, "So this is what you think?" The next second, I fainted. Wendy stood there in a state of panic and bewilderment. At the same time, the door was suddenly pushed open in a hurry. "Nancy," this was Jack's tense and hasty shout. "The boss's depression has flared up due to the stimulation." This was Linda's voice. There were also many other messy footsteps following behind. Jack picked me up horizontally and angrily questioned Wendy. "What did you say to Nancy again?" "I didn't say anything," Linda said. "I vaguely heard words like stealing the fiancé, revenge, and charity." Wendy's voice suddenly became shrill. "How can you believe Linda's words? She was sponsored by Nancy and works under her. She must be on Nancy's side." As soon as she finished speaking, everyone fell silent. Linda sneered. "You also received favors from the boss. Why did you do things like stealing her fiancé and smearing her on the internet?" As soon as these words were spoken, there was an uproar. Curses and all rushed towards Wendy. She found herself in a situation where everyone was pointing fingers at her. I heard my father's angry rebuke. "Jack, what do you mean by repeatedly indulging your fiancé in provoking and slandering my daughter? Do you really think our Smith family is easy to bully?" Jack tightened his hold on me but didn't put me down. He said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Uncle. I will apologize to Nancy when she wakes up. As for Wendy, our engagement is cancelled. I will also clarify all the rumors on the internet truthfully and give you a satisfactory explanation." With a thud, Wendy fell to the ground in a daze. She tightly grabbed Jack's sleeve, her voice filled with fear and trembling. "I was wrong, Jack. I'll apologize to her." "Don't you care about our child?" Jack said coldly. "Abort it." After saying that, he carried me out without looking back. Linda followed closely behind and drove me to that familiar private sanatorium. During the coma period, I kept thinking about the conversation with Wendy. How can we distinguish between sincerity and falsehood? I remembered a post on the internet where a girl sponsored by a benefactor wanted to get married and become a full-time housewife as soon as she graduated, and the sponsor felt complicated about it. Marriage is essentially a cooperation between two parties. To make it last, both sides need to be evenly matched. If you want to seek love, you should first seek a means of livelihood. There are so many lessons from the past, but why do some people still not turn back until they hit the wall? Now I understand. Some people don't really choose love. Instead, they choose a shortcut to class promotion. I have followed my parents through countless mountain roads. The roads wind and turn. And when you are in them, it seems that the end is far away. That's why there are small paths. Although the small path shortens the distance, it is steep and difficult to walk, full of thorns. If you're not careful, you'll slip and get hurt. Every word Wendy said was filled with jealousy and hatred towards me for being born into a wealthy family. She thought highly of herself and was unwilling to be ordinary. By stealing Jack, she gained a sense of superiority and proved that she had finally won over me. She also righteously claimed to be on the side of justice and even deceived herself. Jack is not only the life-saving straw that she must hold on to tightly but also her only trophy. In her eyes, if she loses him, she will truly have nothing. Wendy chose to take the small path, so naturally, she has to bear the risk of slipping. Whether she comes out unscathed or is completely destroyed is beyond her control. When I woke up, I looked at Jack blankly, who was guarding by my bedside. His eyes were bright, and the joy diluted the tiredness between his eyebrows and eyes. "Nancy, you're awake, Jack. Why are you here?" With a stunned expression on my face, he took my hand and affectionately pressed it against his face. He said in a hoarse voice, "Nancy, I regret it. Will you forgive me?" I slowly pulled my hand back and turned my head to look out the window, yet my eyes still turned red uncontrollably. "It's not about forgiveness. We are already in the past. You're about to get married to Wendy," Jack said in a hurry. "I won't marry her. Only now have I seen her true colors. She deliberately led me to misunderstand you before, and now she's wantonly spreading rumors about you on the internet out of jealousy. You changed her fate, but how did she repay you? She played out the story of the farmer and the snake to the fullest. I will never spend the rest of my life with such a person, Nancy. It's my fault for misjudging people and not seeing my own heart clearly. It's only right that you blame me. You're the one who knows me best, and we should be together." I pursed my lips and remained silent. I closed my eyes, and a tear slid down from the corner of my eye. It was both a sign of grievance and a hint of melancholy. If he hadn't given her the opportunity, how could Wendy have succeeded? Men, when they love you, wish they could bring you the stars in the sky. When they don't love you anymore, they use the most hurtful words to poke at your pain, as if they have done nothing wrong. Jack didn't see the sarcastic curve at the corner of my lips and just thought I was too aggrieved. Instead, a barely noticeable glimmer of hope flashed across his face. His tone became even softer. "Nancy, I will prove it to you. Let's stay here for a while, okay? Don't be afraid. I will always be with you." After saying that, he turned off his phone, which kept receiving messages. In front of me, he exhaled a sigh of relief, as if he had let go of all his worries. He clearly regarded this place as a paradise. After a long time, I smiled at him, and my eyes sparkled slightly. Okay, what Jack didn't know was that while he was avoiding reality, things were changing outside. My father joined forces with several leading enterprises and fiercely sniped at the James family. And the James family was exposed with various astonishing scandals, such as tax evasion, accidents at construction sites, and malicious competition. The James family made their fortune in real estate, and many engineering projects had accidents due to irregular operations, resulting in deaths. All these were suppressed by Jack's powerful father. But who is my father? He is a well-known philanthropist. He has sponsored a lot of unfortunate people. It's normal for some of them to want to get evidence to take revenge on the James family. When the market value of the James family evaporated by more than half and they were deeply caught up in a public voice storm and in a state of confusion, my father made a fortune in the stock market. He was happily preparing for the spring festival. When Linda raised her lips and told me to go home, I was making a snowman with Jack. During this period, he was more relaxed than ever before. We had endless topics to talk about every day. He gently shielded me from the wind, and his slender hands were red from the cold. He picked up 2 small stones from the ground and handed them to me. "It's almost done. We just need 2 eyes." I looked at him with a smile but didn't take them. Jack was a bit confused. "What's wrong?" The next second, in his stunned sight, I kicked the head of the snowman away with 1 foot. The corners of my lips turned up, and I showed a rather mischievous smile. "Sorry, the game is over." Jack froze in place, and his thin lips trembled slightly. Nancy, I gathered my coat and walked outside. I left behind a back view without any reluctance and Linda's meaningful expression. I casually waved my hand. When we meet in the future, please call me Miss Nancy. A rotten ship still has 3,000 nails. Although the James family was severely damaged, such a huge entity wasn't so easy to collapse. There was no ripple on my father's refined face. Ripping off such a large piece of meat from them is already enough. The James family won't pose a threat in the future. Moreover, our goal has been achieved, and David is finished. David is Jack's father. When my father's business started to achieve some success, David tried every means to trip him up, at business dinners. He even trampled on my father's dignity both openly and secretly in front of all the CEOs. He even made lewd remarks about my mother and commented on her as if she were a commodity, which is my father's sore spot. So this feud was born. From the day I saved Jack, everything was carefully calculated. My whole family believes in repaying kindness and avenging wrongs. My father has taught me since I was a child, if you repay hatred with kindness, then what should you repay kindness with? A master who is on good terms with our family also said, if someone harms you, to a certain extent, it's like they've stolen your good fortune. Taking revenge is also a process of reclaiming your good fortune. There should be give and take, and that's what balance is. If you are cowardly and tolerant every time, then your good fortune will gradually weaken, and in the end, anyone can step on you. So I have always been someone who never forgets a grudge. There was a smile on my mother's delicate face. Yes, we should actually thank Wendy for this. I nodded with a smile. If it weren't for Jack's high-profile cancellation of the engagement for her 3 years ago, our family wouldn't have been able to openly break with the James family. In addition, the rumors she spread about me on the internet became more and more intense. When Wendy's parents learned that Jack refused to get engaged to Wendy because of me, they were in a hurry. Later, under the guidance of an expert, they started live streams and posted videos crying about me stealing their daughter's fiancé. After these two things were linked together, public opinion was incited to the highest point, and at this time, Jack personally stepped forward to clarify, revealing everything about my sponsorship of Wendy and the subsequent events. My friends in the circle also began to testify and expose the truth one after another. Netizens started to dig deep into my social media traces. The more they dug, the more they found, and all they uncovered were my charitable deeds. The public opinion reversed completely in an instant. For a while, the netizens' favorability towards the Smith family reached its highest point. The stock price soared all the way, and Wendy's parents also suffered a strong backlash from public opinion, especially Wendy, who was directly pronounced socially dead. I saw Jack and Wendy again at a business gala. The father and son of the James family had already been expelled from the board of directors. Jack was completely abandoned. Considering various interests, he had no chance of making a comeback. He was completely left with nothing. Today, he begged his former friends to get an invitation to see me. After not seeing him for a while, Jack no longer had his former high spirits. His face was haggard, and a sense of decadence emanated from his whole body. He stared at me intently, his eyes red. You've been lying to me all along. I shook my head and said, when I said I liked you, it was true. His expression froze, and his pale lips moved slightly. At first, I approached him indeed for the sake of interests, but as my gaze lingered on him for longer and longer, my heart gradually became out of control of my reason, until his gaze began to linger on Wendy, betrayed by two people close to me at the same time. I woke up as if from a dream. After sitting in a daze all night, I withdrew in time and took advantage of the situation. Nancy, there was a glimmer of tears in Jack's eyes, and he instinctively wanted to hold my hand. I smiled and avoided it, looking at Wendy behind him, who was full of resentment. People shouldn't be too greedy. Wendy stopped pretending and trembled with anger. Everything was calculated by you, right, Nancy? You bitch, you will get your comeuppance. I looked at her quietly. Yes, when I saved you back then, my retribution might have been destined. There is a saying that goes, helping a grateful and kind person means a good person making a good connection, helping a bad person overcome a difficult point. The law of cause and effect will be fulfilled on oneself. I deeply believe in this now. Wendy was stunned for a moment when she heard this sentence. I stopped smiling and leaned closer to her. Just as a mother can't accept giving birth to a sharp knife that stabs herself, I can't accept that my kindness was given to an ungrateful person who bites me in the back. Whether you think I'm hypocritical or superior, the fact is that I saved you and supported you. Since you repay kindness with enmity, Why do you think I will let you go? I patted her stiff shoulder, and Wendy's arm instantly broke out in dense goosebumps. She finally seemed to feel fear, and her trembling pupils were gradually blurred by tears. The next moment, I smiled without any trace of darkness. Okay, go and earn money for milk powder with your trophy. Make sure you have a long and happy marriage and be entangled with each other until you die. After Jack completely lost his power, there were plenty of people who added insult to injury. He and Wendy became the hot topic of recent parties. Jack was like a different person, drinking heavily every day. Surprisingly, he still married Wendy. For a while, everyone was filled with sighs, wondering if this was really true love. I just smiled and said nothing. Back then, Wendy's parents made such a fuss that they trampled on the face of the James family. Why did the people of the James family still agree to Jack's engagement with her? Linda spent some effort to find out the inside story. It was possible that this was his only child. How could they let it not be born? But they didn't know that this child might not be Jack's. Wendy knew that Jack's mother and Jack hated her to the core and would definitely torture her with all kinds of means. She wanted to abort the child and leave here with her family, but she was tied up by her parents again and sold to Jack and Jack's mother. They pushed her into the fire pit for the second time. Unfortunately, no one would save her this time. I said indifferently, is this a kind of cycle of cause and effect in another sense? Linda was silent for a while, and a trace of melancholy flashed across her face. This is her own choice. The phone rang, and my eyes and brows softened. Assistant Linda, Mom and Dad are calling us home for dinner. Dad caught a really big fish. A warm expression appeared on Linda's cold face, like the first clearing after snow on a mountain. Okay, after hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story,